What is up, everybody? Cool. How's everybody doing? You guys good? We ready for another Wednesday of fun? We've got a lot of people coming in here. I think it's going to be a big call. I know you guys, hopefully you saw what this call is about this week. This is something that I've witnessed for years that people have struggled with. And I think it's one of the reasons why people fail the most, or it takes the longest time and then to rank, because we give up, because we're struggling with, and it all comes back to spending that little bit of extra time at the beginning for niche selection. So I think this is going to be huge for a lot of you guys. I know there's a couple new people on here that are just getting started out. So I think this is great timing for you guys. But before we get started, let's go into wins. Who has some wins for the last 7 days? Who is moving their business forward? Nobody? No wins? Jeff, you got any wins?
What do I have for a win? You see, got a couple of clients to agree to trials, and have another one that's coming on to get on the call answering service that we're getting together. So those are wins for me, just people expanding within our world.
Excellent. Yeah, we had last week, Jeff and I were at a mastermind to help level up our agency. We made a lot of good connections, and learn some really cool stuff that, hey, maybe we'll feature on some of our future calls. I know we're going to be dropping some of this stuff into the Rank Masters group, which we appreciate the feedback that we've gotten on joining, but we still have the registration on pause right now for that while we get all of our ducks in a row. Does anybody else have any wins before we get into it? Anything to celebrate from the last week?
Luke is saying in the Facebook group, he added a new concrete plan on a flat fee lead gen deal and doubled an existing client's monthly revenue. Congratulations, Luke. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I know that I'm not sure if Spencer will be joining us today, but I know last week he had a $12,000 week, and this on Monday he landed a $2,000 client. I know. Oh, here we go. Here she is right now. Jannery had a win. We're gonna just throw her right in front of the camera as soon as she gets in here. Jannery Canary, what's up? I heard you had a win this last week, closing some deals with our new offer, right?
Yes, sir. I'm afraid to talk because I always have Zoom issues, but I'm going to keep my camera off just in case. Yes. That new offer has been fantastic. So people get it. Yeah. So two deals. They're roughly about 2,500 each per month.
Awesome. So you brought on $5,000 in recurring revenue over the last week. Is that what you're telling us?
Yes, that is what I'm telling you.
I'm not a mathematician, but I feel like if you do that every week, that's going to be a big number pretty soon.
Oh, 100%. And we're going at it. So yes.
That's great. I know you guys were struggling there for a little bit. And I think just not having clarity around the offer and then actually having that clarity, and now we know what to sell and we know how to deliver. Is that a correct?
100%. Yes, 100%. Now it's so simple too, because I had like all these different packages and all this stuff, and now it's like this is what we're offering, and then some add-ons if anything. But that's it. It's simple and easy.
Awesome. Yeah. So I see a question there in the chat about the offer script. So I think that was it kind of just flashed in front of me. I think that was maybe Greg. Greg, yeah. So I think it was a couple calls ago we went through that and we added in. We went over that script a little bit. We'll hit it again at some point. There's parts of it that, hey, this is like a benefit for the Rank Masters members, and I know that is not available to everyone yet, but we'll go through and divulge that at some point. I want to make sure that we focus on the topic for today, which, a lot of people signed up for today's call based on this topic. But yeah, and Greg, I'm happy to kind of like shoot back and forth with you and Messenger a little bit. Before we jump into it, last call for wins. Any other wins? I see Mr. Danny Barrera on here. What's up, brother?
What's going on, brother? How's it going?
Good, man. Good. So for those of you guys who don't know, Danny was one of the speakers at our events a couple weeks ago. And I think Danny's going to be, providing some content. Danny runs a big agency. Really good guy for you guys to connect with. He's been running more of the standard agency, the SEO services for the last few years. And as Danny and I have built this friendship, he's shown a lot of interest into the rank and rent lead gen space. So he's tuning in, I think, to hear about some of the strategies that we use. But Danny's had a tremendous amount of success, great with operations and sales, really good person for you guys to connect with. His time is limited. So, don't take it personal if he doesn't get back to you quickly, but he's a giving person and someone who I trust their opinion on this stuff. So I vouch for this guy. All right, cool. Okay, guys, I think we are through the wins. So let's go ahead and I'm going to take you guys through this. We're today, as you guys saw, we're talking about the niches and choosing the right niche. So give me 1 second and I will be generous with my screen here. Is that full screen? Go. All right. I hate how this thing works. Hold on. Stand by. Why does Zoom do that? There we go. Okay, my apologies, guys. Let's get started here now. Okay, cool. So are we seeing the slides? We're good. Okay, cool. All right, so we're talking about niche consideration. So guys, there's a ton of things to consider when you're choosing a niche. All right, so I want to take you through the top 5 frustrations that I hear on a regular basis. And a lot of these things I've felt myself as I was trying to understand this crazy rank and rent business model. So ranking seems impossible or takes forever, right? We get started, we choose our niche, we go into a city, and we're putting in all this time. 3 months go by, 6 months go by, 9 months, a year, and it's just taking too long. Well, there's a reason that's happening, and there's a way around it. I have leads, but I can't sell them. This was one of my first big mistakes. I built a concrete repair site in Arizona and around Phoenix, and I focused on repair because there was a lot of search volume around that term of repair. And the leads started to come in. A lot of leads started to come in. And the contractors that we spoke to would be originally excited to receive these leads, but then we could never close them. The lead value was way too low to them, and it wasn't the type of work that they were looking for. So you have to make sure when you're building these things out that you're targeting the types of leads that the clients actually want, and not just the ones that are high volume, right? We had people calling in for like, hey, I've got a 3-inch crack on my sidewalk. Those guys don't want to do that. What they want to do is they want to install a new driveway, right? So that was a big mistake for us at the beginning. We try to never make this mistake again by making sure we understand the niche enough. Okay, the business owner can't handle my lead volume. So we're producing a lot of leads, but maybe we've chosen a niche with business owners that aren't really business owners. They are technicians that started their business. They were working as a laborer or for something else, and then they just started to start their own business. And they don't really have all the structure in place. So when we really start to produce for them, the wheels fall off for them, right? Okay, these business owners can't run their own business. This is kind of like piggybacking off of the last one, where these business owners, maybe they sell a big job and then they go buy a Corvette or a boat, and then when it's time to pay you, they don't have money, or they're going on vacation. They're not putting things in place. They're not structuring things right. They're not spending their money in the right areas, and it comes back on you, right? Okay, oops. Okay, so I want to hear from you guys. Throw in the chat how many of you guys have felt one of those frustrations? Let me know which one resonates the most with you from that list. I don't know where the chat is. Jeff, you got the chat?
I got it.
What are we seeing?
I'm not seeing anything yet.
Nobody resonates with this. We haven't had to deal with that. I maybe this presentation.
Commercial niches, Danny Barrera says commercial niches.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you guys, from running this stuff for the last 6 years, those are all pieces that I felt at one point or another. And I want you guys, I want this call to be interactive, guys. Like, let's make this more of, rather than just being a presentation. You guys, we're presenting this stuff to you guys for free. Help us out, give us some feedback, and let us know what you're feeling. So that way we can shape this content, not only on this call, but on the future calls, right? So,
Leonard says ranking in a tough market. Luke, let's see, Danny's saying concrete contractors don't want to split up the crew to tackle smaller jobs, so they set a high minimum.
yep.
Make sure everybody eats. Aaron's saying business owners not running things properly. Jannery says clients not able to pay on time, of course.
100%. Yeah, those are absolutely things that you'll feel when you've been in this for a little while. I know that we have new people on here that maybe haven't had the opportunity to feel these frustrations. So I want to talk to you guys about what I call the golden rule. And this is kind of like the golden rule in lead gen. So it makes a lot of sense when you see it, right? But if you haven't thought of it this way, then you're going to probably step on a landmine. So the golden rule: revenue equals the lead value times the lead volume. So you don't want to go too far. Well, let's just say as the lead value or the lead cost increases, the lead volume decreases. So there's a balance to strike here, and you want to pay really close attention to this, because the niches you choose are going to have huge implications on the revenue opportunity in a lot of different ways. So we're going to get into that. So we're going to talk now about lead value. So I'm going to go over each one of these a little bit more. So lead value is basically the main components are going to be ticket cost, the barrier to entry for a business owner. There's a ticket cost sweet spot we're going to talk about, and I'm going to teach you guys how to determine what the actual lead value is. Okay, so ticket cost. So this one, maybe it seems obvious, but I've seen this mistake. This is probably the biggest mistake that I've seen people make, is they go into niches that have a low ticket cost. And you can create a lot of leads. Like my first niche I went into was in towing. And, we had times where we're creating 400 or 500 calls a month, but the guy cannot pay us as much as someone in another niche where we're producing 40 leads a month, right? So there's all this overhead that's associated with it. A lot of times these lower ticket, these tickets that have, or these niches that have a lower average ticket cost, the business owners that you're going to be working with are going to be a lot less sophisticated. We're going to get into that more. So the higher ticket, better business owners. As we increase the ticket cost, the demand is going to decrease. So we want to kind of have that balance. And what I found is the sweet spot to be at between $1,000 and $4,000. You go below $1,000, you're going to open yourself up to a lot of other issues. And we're going to talk about that as we go through this. Okay, so let's talk about what the high barrier to entry is and why I like it. I think they're your friend. So what makes it a higher barrier to entry? So like experience is required. Some niches, you need a lot of experience to get started, right? If I'm starting a carpet cleaning company, I don't need a ton of experience. I need a van, and I can probably go rent a vacuum cleaner from Home Depot, right? It's a very low barrier to entry. But if I'm starting like a pool building company, I have to have a high amount of experience. I can't just like go with my current skill set and start building swimming pools. I have to have worked there. Ones that have licenses required, and they'll vary. So like in a lot of states, the licensing requirements are not very strong. In Texas a cowboy state? You barely need a license for anything, right? But if you're in Arizona, California, New York, they're going to have really strict licensing requirements. This isn't a bad thing. There's ways that you can deal with this. It is illegal in a lot of states that require a license to advertise without that license being displayed. So the language that you can use is like, hey, we are a third-party referral site that refers all work to licensed contractor, and then you list the license number. The good news is that you're really not going to have to worry about this if you're not ranking very well. Like it's hard for the people that are looking for offenders to find your site if you're not ranking well. What you can do if you're in that situation is just kind of like plant the seed, reach out and say, hey, I'm building to a business owner. You say, hey, business owner, I'm building this whatever fencing site, and I'd love to send you the stuff. We're just getting started. I don't want anything for it. I'll send you everything that comes in. Here's how it works. Here's the site. Would it be okay? Because there's a rule, I have to have your license number on here. Everything will be going to you. You can test it. So that can be a way. We've done that in the past and it's worked out pretty well. Another barrier to entry, another thing that's going to make it hard for people to start these businesses is expensive equipment. Back to that pool building company. There are all kinds of whatever, like backhoes and all kinds of equipment that is really, really expensive for a business to own, right? So that's a big barrier to entry when that stuff exists. And they have to have multiple specialists on a team or multiple crews, right? So if they're building that pool, there has to be someone that operates the backhoe. If that, like, I'm not a pool construction guy. I think that is needed when pools are built. And there's probably somebody else that's going to like, drop in a forklift to drop the pool in, or maybe there's like a plaster specialist. If the pool's heated, you're going to need an electrician. You might need a plumber to run piping. There's all these specialists that are in there, and those are all going to raise the bar on how hard it is to start that business. Okay, so let's talk about the pros and cons of the barrier to entry. Here's my thoughts on this. The pros, the leads are going to be more valuable. If it's harder to start, that means there's going to be less competition, right? Not as many people are going to do things that are hard, right? Makes sense. Because they have to do all this other stuff, you wind up with more sophisticated business owners, and the businesses have processes in place, right? If they're investing all this money into this equipment, licensing, all this stuff, they probably have an admin staff that can help answer the calls and send proposals. They've just got things dialed in a lot better. The downside is there's going to be fewer client options. Another downside is there's probably going to, the volume, we don't have this one on here, but the volume, because this is a higher ticket niche, the volume is going to go down a little bit. So we want to find that sweet spot where we have good volume, but high ticket. Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next one. So I know where this is going, where a lot of you guys are going to struggle to understand what a lead is worth. Like the common sense, you can see the fourth item here is going to tell us a lot. The third one, if we kind of work from the bottom up, we can call for quotes, and we can pretend that we want to have a pool built into our backyard or whatever the niche is that we're considering, and just call and get a quote to get a ballpark. And some of these people are going to hesitate because they think you're a real lead, and they want to get you, they want to meet you in person, like, hey, everything's different. Well, just give me a ballpark. What do you think the average one is over the last 3 months? Get the answer that you want. CPC is the cost per click. So that's Google Ads, right? People are going to be more willing to pay more for a click. Like no one's going to pay $250 for a click for like a house cleaner because the service maybe is worth $150, right? So that cost per click is going to follow the average lead cost. And there's a home advisor list. I'm going to share something with you real quick here. Just going to exit out of this. So I have this and I can share the link, but let's say that so this is kind of Angie's list where we can get the prices. So look at all these niche ideas too. This is a great spot for us to decide niches. Also, if you go to thumbtack.com, you can see the prices, and they're kind enough to give you national averages on things. So like handyman, some of you guys have gone into handyman, $60. So I would never go into it for that reason alone. I want that at least $1,000. So none of these are showing up. And you can kind of see if I send a handyman 50 leads at $60 a lead versus I send a service like maybe like hot water heater installation where it's more than $1,000. If I send them 50 of those, who's going to be able to pay me more? Because the lead cost is higher, right? So it has a higher lead value. So with this Angie's right here, I can basically go through here and we'll say drywall and plaster, right? And I will choose Georgia. So then I can come in here and I'll choose Atlanta. And then I click on view pricing and there's a problem with the site. Okay, so we'll look at this last one that we have here for concrete. You can kind of see it's giving us all these different prices here. So it gives you, and guys, when you're looking at this, I'm taking the high one every time. This is Angie's List. The motivation for people that are purchasing a lead on Angie's List, the intent, the buyer intent is much lower than what I'm teaching you guys on how to rank the stuff, right? And bring those leads in. So with a higher buyer intent, the leads have more value. So we can go gravitate towards the higher number here. Second, these leads are shared between, like Angie says, I forget what their terminology was. It was something like, we asked them, what is it like? How many people do you share these leads with? And their response was something like, legally, what I should tell you is that we share them with no more than 3 people, which, like, why would they just not say 3 people, right? So I'll tell you that Angie's List has changed names, combined with Home Advisor, lost a bunch of lawsuits. Not a company, in my opinion, that has a great reputation. So the clients that we've had, almost all of them have worked with this company at some point, and they hate them. They despise this company. So when you're looking at this, given the quality that we have, you can just take this high one. You don't need a login. I see that coming through here on this. I don't know why it's directing you guys towards a login. I don't have a login. I just went to the link, right? So I'll post this into the Zoom chat here, and maybe there's something different, and you guys can check that out. Okay, cool. All right, so let's go back to our presentation here. Okay, so you guys, now we know some different sources on how we can determine what a lead is actually worth, right? We can go through, we understand that the value times the volume is going to determine our revenue, and we understand how we can determine the value.
Hey,
Okay,
Pat,
so was there a question there?
yeah, Patrick, I got a question for you.
I can't tell where that's, oh, Greg, what's up, man?
So, on lead costs, so I have the Home Advisor sheet and also have access to Angie's List, but it gives us a gauge of what a shared lead cost is. I went to a site called Home Guru, and they sell exclusive leads in the arena that we play in, right? Maybe not every niche, but a lot of friggin' niches, right? So on their page, you can put in, say, roofing or concrete, and it will tell you what that lead will be, and it's an exclusive lead. So is that not maybe more of an accurate indicator, considering that they're selling those leads to only one contractor? Would that not be a better barometer on how much a lead is actually worth in that area?
I would say theoretically, yes. I'm not familiar with Home Guru. It seems like a good resource to explore more. We want to get exclusive leads, but you want to also take into account that if you rank a site in Google and someone goes and searches Google, and then a lot of times, let me back up. A lot of times when people are going to these sites like Angie's List, Home Advisor, potentially Home Guru, it's a race to the bottom for the people that are bidding on these leads. So the value of the lead is automatically lower when you compare that to someone who's ranking organically, where the prospect for the service has, like, what do we do when we want something now? We search Google, right? We want someone to come out to our house and give us an estimate. So inherently, that lead value is higher, and our clients need to pay us for the premium quality of the lead. And just because the leads from Home Guru aren't stepped on the same way they are with Angie's List doesn't necessarily, like, maybe it's a better gauge, but I would still say, like, maybe we should be charging more than whatever they are because of the way that we're generating the leads. Does that make sense, Greg?
Yeah, they're pretty friggin' high. Like a roofing lead is $300. Like that's realistic. Like $200 is probably what I would price a roofing lead at, but they're at $300.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of roofers that are going to pay $300 a lead. Maybe that's a booked appointment. Maybe it has a certain square footage requirement. Maybe it's a certain type of roof. Maybe, like, I just had my roof replaced, and the metal roof is twice as expensive as a shingle roof. So there could be, like, variations within that. So yeah, it sounds like you've got to, my goal here is to not, my goal is to kind of give you guys a framework that you can use to analyze and decide what niches are going to be better. And it sounds like, Greg, you're on the right track. You're looking at these other sources. We're looking at, we just need a way to determine the value. And I would say Home Guru, you can try it out, try out some of their prices, see what the clients are willing to pay, see what types of leads. They're not going to be paying $300 for a roof repair. I can promise you that. And they may not want to pay $300 for an installation, depending on what their sales abilities are. If they're closing $20,000 roofs, then like $300, they have, I think, about a 7% margin. So there's a lot of margin built in to pay for that lead cost. But I want to make sure we keep this moving. Greg Adams, I see you have your hand up. You got a quick question, buddy?
Now, I just want to validate what you just said there a while ago. What got me in this business probably over 10 years ago when I had running my water filtration business. It was originally Service Magic, then it went to Home Advisor, then went to Angi. But somebody had told me about Service Magic. So with my water filtration business, they promise you, 2 to 3 leads max. And what we found out, it ended up being the whole thing, because everybody in the industry knew each other, and like we were running each other over to get to the lead. And it was probably, I was getting about, they were sharing it between 6 to 8, maybe sometimes 10 different people were getting the same lead. So yeah, you can take those numbers in there and just multiply it out. And it's the same old game. They just keep changing names, and that's all I want to say. So don't, whatever that number is, you can at least triple it, in there. If it's $20 a lead, it's worth at least 60. And those people that are buying those leads, if you contacted those people, they're already pissed off about it. So you don't have to do much to win them over.
100%. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Greg. Appreciate it. All right. Let's go on to, we're going to talk about demand. I think this slide is actually, sorry guys, it's a little out of order. We're going to come back to that one. So now we've kind of covered lead value, and the next bit of slides are all going to be about volume. So if we go back to that golden rule, the revenue is going to be the lead value times the lead volume. We've looked at things that influence the value. One thing that apparently I left off is the profit margin. One of the mistakes that I made, I went deep into a niche, and if I had it to do over again, I would have chosen a niche that had a higher profit margin. That makes everything easier, right? So profit margin for the client, because we want to give them as much like leeway to be able to pay us as possible. And just like ranking in niches that have a higher lead value is not correlated with it being more competitive, the services that they provide can be just as hard to do, just as much time, but one can have a lot more profit margin than another. And we want to make sure that we are considering profit margin of the actual service that's being provided. The more profitable our clients are, the more money that we can put in their pockets, the more they're going to appreciate us, the less they're going to churn, and the easier it is going to be for them to pay us, right? So somehow I skipped that, left that off. Now we're going into volume. So this is all about quantity. So as the volume goes up, the cost is going to go down. There's not going to be the same amount of people that want towing as pool installation. It's one's, $75,000 and another's whatever, $100, right? So this basic economics, there's a super strong correlation there. Competition. So I've got over here roofing. So going in like roofing, really, really high competition. Okay. The more competitive something is, the more it's going to impact your the volume, what you can actually, what percentage of market share can you actually grab? Frequency. So we're going to dive deeper into each one of these, whether the service is required versus optional, the population of the market you're targeting, and the location. Okay, so now we're gonna go into each one of these a little bit more. So frequency. So how often is this service needed? So a lot of people don't get their carpets cleaned at all. Some people do it every 6 months. Some people do it once a year. I've got a swimming pool over here just outside my door. I've got to have somebody out here every week, right? So that frequency of the service requirement. So you can determine the volume in a lot of different ways, guys. There's tools out there. Some of these tools are more expensive. If you guys are just getting started, the one right there in the middle, keywords everywhere, that's the one you're going to want to check out. I think for like $11 or something like that, you can buy 1,000 credits. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've used that, but Ahrefs is the tool that I use. It has a lot of stuff with like backlinking. I think it's a couple $100 a month. SEMrush or SEMrush, as some people call it. That's another one very similar to Ahrefs. Keywords everywhere. It's a great one to get started with. You just pay for credits, and it's a cheap amount of money for a ton of credits, and then you can get a lot of keyword insight. Majestic has, I didn't even know that Majestic, I thought I always have looked at Majestic as more as a backlink tool, but I know that my project manager put this together. So I'm sure that Majestic must have this if she has written this on here. And then Google Keyword Planner. Google Keyword Planner is great. I've covered this a few times in the past. I'm not going to go into this because it's hard to share this without exposing like proprietary confidential company information. But what's really cool about Google Keyword Planner, and you can only use, like if you have, if you're running paid ads, then it will give you an amount. But if you're not, and you try to use Google Keyword Planner, it gives you this range, which is pretty useless. But what's really cool about the Google Keyword Planner is you can actually get location specific on the keyword. So I can say, by default, it will say like the United States, but I could actually say, show it to me for the city I'm in, or the county I'm in, or the state I'm in. Really powerful. If you're running paid ads, I can show you how to take advantage of that. One thing I want to point out about keywords is, you guys, like, if I search, like if we use pool cleaning, and maybe I'm in Dayton, Ohio, and the biggest search term is like pool cleaning services. I'm by no means recommending going into pool cleaning. Pool cleaning services is the best search term. And that's like nationwide. Well, regardless of what city I'm in, that's both a national, that's a local term, right? Pool cleaning services, wherever I am, that term is going to show up. And if pool cleaning services Dallas is like maybe the most popular localized term for that keyword, then the same is probably going to be true for Dayton. Like, so for instance, pool cleaning services Dayton would be the most popular local term if the first one showing up on the keywords is pool cleaning services Dallas, right? You can extrapolate that to whatever city you're in. It's going to follow those patterns. The humans speaking English are located all in all these different cities. They're gonna search very, very similar. I hope that's coming through clear. Okay, cool. All right, so population. The higher population, the greater the demand. Makes sense, right? Here's the bad part of that. The higher population, the more competition you're going to have, right? So this is where we want to balance. I think for you guys that are getting started, a sweet spot is going to be around 150K to 400,000 population. That will give you enough demand without bringing in a ton of the big dogs that are going to make it really competitive. And you're going to want to look at the videos that we've prepared in the past on due diligence. There's a ton that goes into this, guys. You have to find out. Like, I could have two cities that have the same demographics, the same population, maybe even the same temperature and weather patterns. And in city A, it could be 10 times harder than city B. What it comes down to is how good did the people happen to do in one city versus another. So you're going to want to use this stuff, but you've got to consider the local stuff. Just because it's a good population doesn't mean that it's going to be the right market to go into. And the due diligence stuff is going to help you decide what market is better than the other one. These are general niche rules to look at, though, when you're considering things. Okay, cool. So the location, when we're looking at location, we're thinking about the population size. We just talked about this. We also want to think about the demographics, right? So I was talking to Jeff, and we were talking about like a landscaping site where someone, and I've made mistakes way worse than this. Someone had built a landscaping site in a city that was mostly like blue collar with a lot of, there was a lot of like Hispanics, and like this is, I've noticed, and maybe you guys have too, in certain areas, a lot of the people that are performing the landscaping service are, they're blue collar and they're maybe Hispanic. So the ability to get phone calls from this like group of people maybe is less than if you put it in Beverly Hills. A lot of these people that are living in Beverly Hills are not going to want to go out and cut their trees. They're going to want to hire someone. So you got to pay attention to those demographics. If you're installing swimming pools, you maybe don't want to do that in Detroit, right? Maybe you want to do that in a wealthy area where the demographics are going to align with what you're doing, and also the location, right? There's not going to be as much swimming pool installation in, Green Bay as there is in West Palm Beach, right? So we have to pay a lot of attention to this. A lot of the stuff I think maybe is common sense. The seasonality of the location. So for instance, concrete, we'll go back to concrete. If you guys are, the location can determine the seasonality. So maybe the concrete, the off season in Florida for concrete is different than the off season in Michigan or Wisconsin. These guys, when it's too cold, these guys can't pour the concrete, right? So the seasonality is going to impact this. And when you decide on your niche, you want to make sure that you take these things into account. So one of the sites that I built, one of the first sites that I built was an HVAC site in Las Vegas. And I thought, well, this is great because it gets so hot in Las Vegas that, the air conditioner, the air conditioners are going to break. These people are going to be required to take care of this stuff, which was true. We killed it. In the summertime, it was great. The problem was that the winters are so moderate that the guy cannot pay the people in the winter. So he couldn't staff his company because there wasn't enough furnace repair requests. So he couldn't bring people on full time for part of the year. They didn't want to do that. And, we weren't producing as many furnace leads as were needed for him to bring these people on. So it was an impossible niche to rank in, but I don't like to give up on things. So we beat on this thing for a year. We finally got it to rank. We killed it in the summer, but our client couldn't really grow their business because he couldn't hire these people for the winter. As I just mentioned on the last one, the local competition can vary greatly by the location. So you want to really do your due diligence and make sure that you're choosing one that is going to be easier for you. So let's talk about required versus optional. I was actually talking to Danny Barrera about this a few weeks ago. Danny and I both chose a niche that's optional. I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. And what happens when if the economy is down? Like when COVID happened, everything was soaring and everyone was buying, making their home look great, but the economy maybe is not in the same spot that it was a few years ago. And we've noticed that a lot of people have dialed back on these optional services. So for instance, an optional service is like car wrapping or deciding to get your kitchen redone. So it's going to bend and flux with with the economy, and it's also going to be more seasonal. So it's not going to be 100% seasonal if it's required. So you can look at like HVAC and somewhere that gets really hot and gets really cold. So like from where I'm from, Dayton, Ohio, HVAC is it's not going to be as optional because it's going to go down to below freezing for a good part of the year, but it's going to be really hot in the summer. So it's required there, but in Vegas, it may not be required during the winter. People would rather just go buy a space heater. Water heater repair, that's going to absolutely require people to get that fixed as quickly as possible. People don't want to take cold showers, right? They don't want to wash their dishes with cold water. Roofing, we like I said, we just had to replace our roof. We had a leak. We bought this new house. There's a leak in the roof. There's nothing we can do. We have to do it. It's going to cause damage and mold if we don't take care of it. So the demand is built in for those required services, and it makes it a lot more recession proof. So if you're choosing a niche, you can see what I'm favoring here. The required services are going to always have that demand, where the optional ones are going to flux and have like seasonality to them, which is going to impact your ability to supply the amount of leads you want. So something you absolutely want to consider. Favor the required, but maybe it's not going to be like, the required, the pool gets pretty small pretty quick on some of this required stuff. But if you think outside the box, you can come up with ones that aren't mainstream. Okay, cool. All right.
Aiden has a question if you're gonna.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we get through all of our stuff here. Aiden, just hold on to your question. We only have a few more slides, and then I'll take some Q&A at the end.
Oh yeah, sure. Take your time. Absolutely.
For sure. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right, seasonality. So the required niches are less seasonal. Like I mentioned, it can depend on location. And what does the business owner do during the off season? Like some of these guys that are in landscaping, if they're in Michigan, a lot of them have snow removal stuff. So that can counterbalance a seasonal niche if it goes that way. For a lot of the plumbers or the HVAC people, a lot of HVAC and plumbing go hand in hand. So the HVAC guys can do plumbing in the winter. If it's in like a, like in the Vegas situation, my HVAC client in Vegas, he doesn't do plumbing. So I can't create like plumbing leads for him. So it's just something to consider when you go into these niches. All right, let's go to competition. Okay, so now I'm going to step back because this is where this one should have been. Okay, so this is what you guys are kind of balancing. And I would take this and I would write this down when you're considering a niche. Think about this lead volume, the frequency. So I would go through and I would kind of rate the niche and be like, where is it on this scale? Where is the city? Where's the location? Is it favorable, ideal? What type? Is this required or optional? You notice that this is a sliding scale for each one of these. How seasonal is this? These are things that you want to consider for every niche and every city that you go into. Okay. All right. So competition. So we've touched on this a little bit. And does anybody know who this guy is right here and why he's here? Go ahead, speak freely if you guys know who that guy is. If you don't, you should follow this guy.
Mr. Rogers?
Yeah, Pat.
What's that?
That's Patrick Flynn.
Patrick Flynn. Really smart guy, passive income master. He's got a saying that says the riches are in the niches. And if you take it a step further, the riches are in the obscure niches, right? So thinking outside the box, staying away from this, avoid the beat down niches, right? Roofing, concrete, HVAC, plumbing. Everybody and their grandma has done these niches, and you want to try to avoid those if possible. Think outside the path. You can get a lot of ideas just driving around town. We're going to go over that in just a few minutes, but we're going to avoid the crowds and we're going to do our due diligence on the niches, right? So the more obscure can be drive down the demand, but you want some level of obscurity. And you guys, if you look at who makes more money, right? A specialist heart surgeon or a guy that is a general doctor, right? The guy who's like removing this like one type of brain tumor where people are traveling from all over the world to help it, or just the guy that is going to like do your yearly checkup, right? The ones that have niched down get paid more money in almost every industry. So I would encourage you guys to find those niches and be a specialist, be the expert in this like smaller area. It may seem like, hey, when I niche down, there's going to be less companies, but there's guys, there's enough companies all over the country to provide you even in a smaller niche, right? If you got 1%, let's think about like instead of these beat down niches, what if we did like septic tank installation, right? So that is more obscure, but if you were to get 1% of the guys doing this as your client, I guarantee you'd be a 7-figure agency. There's like that can be a very expensive service, and there's got to be hundreds of those guys doing that stuff. All right, let's make it unfair. Right? Like this right here. So my basketball analogy. So when we're thinking about competition, guys, I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'2". And if I go play a basketball against people that are my age, that are my height, I'm going to win some, lose some. But if I go and I play against this little kid, like a 3rd grader, it's not fair. And when we get to choose our niche and where we go into, we get the opportunity and we have the luxury to make it unfair. So I want you guys to look for those. And this goes into that due diligence. If we choose the weakest markets, the competition is really low, which means our volume can be higher because we're going to get a bigger piece of that market share, right? So you guys know this saying. Maybe you've heard me say it. It's one of my favorite. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, right? So we don't have to be the best SEO in the world. We have to be better than the market that we choose. And we can choose any market and any niche that we want to. So I'd encourage you guys to select the right markets, choose the low competition, and your volume is going to go up, which is going to increase the revenue, right? So if you go into these wrong markets, though, it's going to cause a lot of problems for you. Okay, so sub-niching. So if we talk about like one of these beatdown niches like plumbing, we can choose something within plumbing and we'll be the specialist. So it's a niche within a niche. So big niches are going to have big competition. Instead of roofing, I could choose metal roofing. Like all I work with is metal roofing, right? The more specific you are, the easier it is to rank. Google favors the specialist, right? So if you have a site that is 100% dedicated towards metal roofing, and another company has a site that's about all types of roofing, and somebody searches for metal roofing, Google's like, oh, this guy is the specialist. There's a reason that the articles in Wikipedia show up above other things because they have so much information. They have so much knowledge. They have this specialized knowledge on the topic. You get to be, you have the option to choose a niche within a niche and become the specialist on that topic. Okay, cool. So for instance, plumbing versus leak detection. If I was going, I wouldn't want to go into plumbing, but I could choose something that's a really valuable service like leak detection, and I can build out entirely on that. Once I have a client who's providing leak detection, then I can maybe expand it and build a hot water heater site, some of these other sites, right? So it's a great way to get results coming in. We don't need to dominate a market for plumbing to make a lot of money. If you're producing 20, 30 leads on leak detection, then maybe that's going to be enough to give you a couple $1,000s a month because that's an expensive service. All right. So let's talk about waterfall niches. I love these waterfall niches. The problem with the waterfall niches is, you take this with a grain of salt, is like, look at the ticket cost of these, right? For table rental, chair rental, catering, bartending, DJ, a lot of this stuff is going to be cheaper. But when one lead becomes many leads, well, that's really powerful. So for example, if someone is renting tables, then they're probably also going to need chairs. They're going to need catering, bartending, a DJ, tent rental, like maybe they need a cake. So that means if I were to build out these different sites, I have a lot of roads into my business. So it would be simple. If it's a phone call, like maybe it's going to a receptionist on my team and it's like, oh, you guys are renting tables. What's going on? Oh, you're having a wedding. That's great. Congratulations. Do you guys also need catering? Because we have some recommended vendors that we worked with in the area that are amazing. 5-star reviews. We recommend them often. And then I can refer my caterer. Oh, a bartender. Yes. So you kind of see these waterfall niches where one becomes many. There's a lot of niches where this can happen, right? So maybe people with leaky roofs, when they're replacing the roof, maybe the next thing they want to do is get some spray foam insulation, right? So what are the things that we can pair with this? Water damage. Maybe they also need drywall. So what are those waterfall niches and how can we turn one lead into many leads? It could be a checkbox for form submissions where it's like, after they put in their information, it goes to a second page that says, hey, we have some really vetted top level companies in your area that also provide these services. Please check these boxes if you'd like to be contacted, and they click submit. And then it's notifying you that, hey, okay, let me refer this other niche, right? It's a really, really powerful way to multiply your lead volume. Okay, cool. So ideas for niches, where can we get them? We just saw on Thumbtack. So if we go back to Thumbtack there, if I scroll down here on thumbtack.com/prices, you can see there are tons of ideas for niches, right? Everything you can think of, all this stuff is in here. And you can go through and you can put it into the cost sheet and go from there, right? So there's a ton of ideas. Another spot that you guys can be looking, and I don't know if you guys are doing this the same way as me, but after you've been in this for a little while, when a wrap vehicle drives by you, I look at every single one of them. I'm constantly looking for ideas. Another thing I'm doing is like, what do I need, right? When there's something in my house. So we bought this house. We're out in the country a little bit. We had to have our water, because we're on well water. We had to have this, like, I spent like $7,000 to have somebody come out and like install these like different types of filters and stuff like this. So I'm like, man, maybe that's a good niche. Or like, where does that well water come from? It comes from a well. What about well drilling? Like, I know that's a really expensive thing. So like, just kind of thinking through it and constantly looking for these things. Everywhere you go, there's opportunities. There's people running businesses all over the place. You just have to be in the right mindset to evaluate some of this stuff. Okay, cool. All right. So you guys, if you didn't go through the niche down training, I 100% recommend it. The people that niche down there are exceptions, but by and large, the people that have scaled a big agency have niche down. So you want to make sure that just don't niche down until you go through our niche down training, because there's a lot of opportunities to make mistakes, and that just like there are choosing niches. But once you get to that spot, it's easier sales. You know the pain points, you get referrals, you can position yourself in the niche as an authority, maybe speak at some of these associations. It's a repeatable process. You really know the niche. Even your team knows the niche. Your writers are writing about the same stuff, whether it's in Dallas, Houston, whatever, Austin, all these different places. It's this, you're just executing the same playbook again and again. You're playing the same sport every day instead of like, okay, here we're going to do this, right? We have the picture here with the assembly line. Henry Ford, right? He created the assembly line. So Henry Ford didn't scale this business really big because like, we're going to make a car and the next time through, we're going to make a washing machine and then we're going to like make a motorcycle. Like they have the assembly line that just does the same thing again and again. That's a repeatable process. Guys, follow that. You can leverage your existing assets. That's like we have hundreds of sites in our niche. And when one of them is not ranking well, I can just send some links from some of my other sites to my new site, right? And I can leverage my existing assets. So a big training on this. I really highly recommend it. All right. Last thing to consider. I think this is the last one. Do you want to be the owner or do you want to be the middleman? For most of us, we want to start out as a middleman, and that's great. I highly recommend it, the middleman. So the middleman is like, we build the site, someone calls, we refer it out. Some niches, you may want to have the opportunity to transition into being an owner, right? I don't want to own a roofing company. That sounds like a nightmare, unless I'm going to consult for equity and I want to work my way in that way. But I don't want to start a company like a roofing company that's going to be based on people and like supplies and all these other things. But maybe if it was like a bouncy house place, which is going to be a lower ticket, one that I wouldn't go into if I'm going to be planning on being a middleman, but I could potentially buy the bouncy house stuff. And I've actually looked at that myself. I know that I could have a college kid go and drop this stuff up, pick it up. And I know that it takes about 2.5 rentals before I'm going to get my money back. And I can rent these things out for years, right? So you want to really consider this stuff when you go into a niche. What's your end game? What's the long-term plan? Okay, so we put this graph together for you guys to give you a little bit of idea of some of the stuff we talked about. So we've got the lead value right here. So this is the higher lead value on the left side. And then, across the bottom, we have the volume. So pool building, right, is going to be low value, but high value, but low volume. And you look over here at like an electrician, it's going to be higher volume. I think I'm surprised that it's that far right. I know we were considering the search volume and stuff like that when we put it out there. I would imagine that a lot more people are going to be looking for towing, but you've got kind of this balance. It's hard to find things that are going to fit into this top right quadrant. I am not familiar with the solar panel installation, but again, I know this is based on that like volume that we actually looked at. Some of these over here in the top right though are my favorites. I really like the remodeling niche. I think is a really strong niche. This is a niche that I played in quite a bit, the concrete. But I want you guys to think about this, where it's going to fit in on this graph, whatever niche you're considering, and make sure that you choose the right spots. So I believe that is the end of the show for today. All right, so I'd love to hear your guys' feedback. I know we had a couple questions. If you guys have a question, do us a favor and help us stay organized by using the raise hand reaction option. For those of you guys that don't have a question, I would love to hear what your biggest takeaways are from this. Like, what was this valuable to you guys? Do you kind of feel like you have a better understanding of how we should identify the niches that we want to play in? And yeah, I'd love to hear it. Let us know. Okay, I've got a hard stop in like 6 minutes, so we only have a few minutes for questions, but let's start off with Aiden. Aiden, what's up, man? What question do you have?
All right, hi. So I was just curious, what's your opinion on when you're getting started, just like me? Should I go vertical on one niche, not a sub niche, but one niche, and then build out? So choose some cities based off of that niche and then go from there. Should I go more like 6 different niches?
Yeah, when you're starting off, you want to start off with like 5 or 6 different niches. Okay. I would recommend watching that niche down video, because that's gonna cover that specifically. You want to run around the bases a few times before you choose your niche and make sure there's going to be things hiding in there that you don't know until you've actually got money coming in from it. So running around the bases means you're actually have money coming in. You've completed, you actually stepped on home, right? You got across the finish line. So do that a couple times, really start to understand the dynamics of that niche and know that niche. and then you can make that decision. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's go over to Matt.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome. What's up, Matt? How you doing, man?
Hey, doing good. Hey, real quick. Say you close $1,000 a month contract, right? What's your Google AdWord budget off that? What would you do?
So first of all, the way I would close Google Ads would not be like that. I would say, look, our Google Ads is $700. Like the management fee is $700 a month. I know that some people have tried to run like this method where we go and we land to clients, then we run Google Ads and we sell them the leads from that come in through the ads. And I think that's a really tough model to be good at, because it is very difficult to run ads effectively. And honestly, it's going to take you like 90 days for the algorithm to get, if you're great at it, it's going to take you 90 days to get things dialed in. And by 90 days, the client is going to be bouncing if they are not getting the return. So it can cost you, like if you're going after high ticket niche, maybe it's costing you $100 a click. It's taking you 10 clicks to actually get a lead. So that's $1,000 a lead. The roofer may not close, but one out of 3 of those. So then it's like $3,000 for a closed job. So the way I would sell Google Ad services, I would sell it as a management fee, where it's like, hey, we're going to manage this for you for $700 a month. And then I would go find an expert that is an ads management company that is going to charge me $500 a month. And I'm going to make that money on the $200 spread. So it's kind of part of the offer. And then I would not be doing a budget less than $1,000 for ads. I just think like with a management fee, it's going to eat in too much into the total. Like they're spending $1,000, they're spending $500 on a budget and $700 on a management fee. They're essentially spending $1,200. So you have to have a high enough budget to offset the management fee. I've tried that method, and I think that's probably why you're asking that question. But I've tried that method, and it can be really tough to perform. One of the things I want to show you guys real quick that I forgot. Does that answer your question there, Matt? Does that give you a little bit more?
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. I want to share with you guys this. This was supposed to be part of my presentation. It is. All right, so I'm going to share my screen real quick. Give me 1 second. Share screen. Share this screen. Okay. Stand by. All right. So you guys should be able to see this blank screen, right? Is that what we see, Jeff? We're good?
Yep.
Okay, guys. I want to give you this before we leave here. So draw. Okay. Okay. So we got this triangle here. And over here, we're going to say competition, right? If this is our competition. Longevity. That's what we're after. This no churn. And the question that you just asked is directly related to this. If we want to have profitable longevity, running that type of business model is going to be real challenging to get to that spot. If you do this wrong, if you have too much competition, it's going to take forever to rank. You're going to have ranking issues, right? If you do this wrong, then you're going to have low revenue, right? You're going to create leads that aren't worth much. And you're probably going to have too much competition too, right? Those two are going to be related. When that lead value is low, because of the barrier to entry, you're going to have a ton of competition. If you do this one wrong down here, you're going to have a lot of churn. You're going to have bad business owners that are disorganized. They can't run their business, right? So we have to kind of, we have to balance all three of these things. And I want to share this with you too, kind of what you guys are looking for. Hold on 1 sec. I'm going to draw 3 circles here. Do it. Ugh, I am so bad at drawing. We got an octagon and a circle. This is not how my brain was not meant to be a drawer.
It'll be a Venn octagon.
Then octagon. Okay, all right. So this one right here is ticket cost. What is our ticket cost? This is our demand. And down here is our competition. Obviously, we want to play in this circle right here. And what it's going to look like is it's going to be those high ticket cost, but not too high. And it's going to be medium demand. And then it's going to be low competition. That's the sweet spot where you guys want to be. So if you do these things right, it's going to make your job a lot easier on the other side. Okay, let me shut that off. Hopefully that provided some value to you. I know some of you guys are really visual with how we picture these things. All right, so I think we have time for one last question.
Robert waiting.
Robert, I'm going to take your question. Aiden posted it in the group, but I've got to bounce out of here. I've got another call I've got to jump on. So Robert, give it to me quick, man.
Hey, Patrick, if you want to hop off right now, by the way, I don't need to ask you. It was just about pay-per-click. I could totally ask you another call.
Okay, let's do it on another call. Aiden,
No
throw
problem.
your question in the group, man. I'm committed to trying to help you out with it. It's just I've got to jump off here. So I'd love to hear if you guys got value from this call. Throw it into the Facebook group. It always helps us understand and how to direct things better. Obviously, we're putting some time and effort into these presentations, and I'd love to hear if you're getting value or if we should steer it in another direction. So you guys, let's do what you got to do over the next week. We were kind of skimpy on the wins this week. I want to hear some big wins next week. So move the dial on your company, and let's celebrate some wins at the beginning of next call. All right, guys, have a great week. Thanks a lot.